there is a cost. Freedom is never free, and it has never been free. So it's a bit of an oxymoron in and of itself, right? Like, freedom isn't free. It always costs somebody. And the people who are willing to stand up and fight for freedom, they are quite few and far between, because the reality of the human existence is that the majority of us are willing to sit by and allow the few to fight for the many. We are comfortable in our freedoms. We are comfortable in living the realities that other people have sacrificed so that we can live. And in most cases, I don't believe that we actually even give proper credit to the people who have sacrificed for our freedom. This is Leah Steele, aka The Wealth Witch, and this is my podcast. I'm here to activate you to remembrance of your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. This podcast is for people ready to have controversial conversations about the financial control, manipulation, and tyranny that faces humanity today.
Right place, right time, right place, right time, right place, right time. In a golden state of mind.
The Wealth Witch. It's for the people who are ready to wake up, deconstruct their wealth programming, and free themselves from the financial slavery consciousness that serves the global financial agenda. I'm committed to realizing a new global wealth paradigm where economic freedom is the reality and where you get to design and live the life of your dreams.
I'm gonna live golden, golden, golden.
Now let's do the damn thing. So I wanted to hop on today and riff a little bit on the cost of freedom. And this is something that has been resonating so deeply with me over the last few days. I am getting messages on a daily basis from people trying to make decisions that are in the highest and best good of themselves and their family in regards to all kinds of things that are happening in the world right now. So in regards to, whether or not they should get the vaccine, in regards to, what to do if they have the virus, in regards to what they should be doing with their financial planning, how to prepare for what's coming. I'm literally fielding these types of messages on a daily basis. And as a result of that, I have started reaching out to people in my life that, I know have chosen to get the vaccine for one reason or another. And because I really want to understand where everyone's coming from. If you know my position on this, I just believe that we are entitled as beings on this planet to informed medical consent. And I believe that it is our birthright to be able to choose what we do with our physical vessels. And so, one of the things that was really interesting is that I reached out to a cousin of mine, and on the Black side of my family, many of my cousins are in the military. And this particular cousin, I reached out to him and really just wanted to check in with him and see how he was doing. And we started talking about, the state of the world. I think it's pretty much impossible to not have a conversation about the state of the world when the world is engulfed in chaos and fuckery. But I was interested to talk to him, about a couple of things, actually. One of which being, I was really interested in how the military was receiving Joe Biden. And so I was curious about that, and I wanted to talk to him about that. And those answers are definitely for another live stream. But then I also was really curious about, how he was feeling about the military getting ready to implement mandatory vaccine for coronavirus. And, his response was really interesting to me. And his response was, I gave away freedom over how my body, I gave up freedom of my body when I signed up and joined the US military. And he said, so I waived that right when I chose to join the military. And I just thought it was so fascinating. And this cousin I respect so much. I respect he's younger than me, but I respect his views. I respect his points of view. We, over the years, have had lots and lots of different conversations, political conversations about, Obama, Trump. And I think that he has, as a millennial, I think that he has a very unique perspective. As a millennial that's in the military, I think he has a very unique perspective about what's happening and going on in the world. And so I really even though we don't agree on everything, I really honor having these types of conversations with him, because he's very forthright and he really, stands up for what he believes in. One of those things is being in the military and choosing to defend his country. And so, interestingly enough, he is actually going to be leaving the military. And I think he has 20 months or something like that left, but he's going to be discharging from the military. He's married to somebody in the military. I really thought he was going to make a career of it. And for his own personal reasons, he's chosen not to do that. However, this conversation, which is relevant to this live stream today, or if you're listening on the podcast, this podcast today, is the cost of freedom and who pays those costs. And I want to talk about it from a couple of different perspectives, but I thought that this response was really interesting when he said, I gave up the right to be in charge of what happened to my body when I joined the military. I waived that right away. And he expressed some frustration around people in the military who are now objecting to receiving the vaccine. So, and he was vaccinated a few months ago, and he's not upset about people not being able to choose because he believes that people should choose. But his point was that, all of these people that are upset and are complaining about having to get this vaccine didn't complain after basic training when they were lined up and given 8 different injections. In most cases, they didn't even ask what they were. They just took them because that's what you do. And so now, he was expressing some frustration around people sort of now questioning and being all up in arms. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just giving you a perspective of a young man who has been in the military for, since his late teens, is now in his early 30s. And, I think has a unique perspective on what it means to sacrifice yourself for perceived freedom. And I say perceived because there are lots of people out in the world that believe that people who take orders from our governments are part of the problem. So our military, our police officers, there are a lot of people out there I know that believe that they are a big part of the problem, that they're a big part of the reason that we're in this situation. I don't personally have that belief. I believe that the military, there are purposes for the military. I believe that there is purpose for law enforcement. I respect people who make the decision to join law enforcement or join the military. I don't believe that those decisions should be forced. I don't believe people should have to go into the military, as they do in some other countries. But because I believe in choice, I believe that we should have choice in what we do with our bodies, in what we do with our lives. And I know that many of these people make tremendous sacrifices for doing something that they believe is right, defending our countries or defending the people in our countries. And like any profession or like any institution or any organization, there are good apples and there are fucking rotten apples, right? And, you know, the law enforcement in the United States in particular has come under a ton of fire, you know, in the last several years for lots of different things. And to me, it is an example of some rotten fucking apples really creating a problem for the whole. And now we've taken this stance of like, well, let's defund the police departments. Let's defund law enforcement. And now we have safety issues for people in the country because there isn't anybody there to protect and serve. So I want to talk today about the cost of freedom because there is a cost. Freedom is never free, and it has never been free. So it's a bit of an oxymoron in and of itself, right? Like freedom isn't free. It always costs somebody. And the people who are willing to stand up and fight for freedom, they are quite few and far between, because the reality of the human existence is that the majority of us are willing to sit by and allow the few to fight for the many. We are comfortable in our freedoms. We are comfortable in living the realities that other people have sacrificed so that we can live. And in most cases, I don't believe that we actually even give proper credit to the people who have sacrificed for our freedom. I'm not going to like create a political discussion about this here because, you know, obviously there are people on both sides of the coin here. There are people that believe that the US military fight for the freedoms of America. And there are people that believe that that hasn't been the case for many, 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 many years, that now we're simply fighting for control of opium or fuel, right? Oil, that true wars, that the wars now in our world, in our reality that we live in right now, that wars aren't fought for freedom, that wars aren't fought, to secure our freedoms or anyone else's freedoms, that wars are simply fought because they are extremely financially lucrative. They boost the economy, and when we are entering into war in other countries, it's because we have an interest in controlling some kind of asset that we perceive that country has, whether that's oil or opium or cocaine or whatever it is. And so that's not the intention of this conversation, is to have a debate about whether or not there are people fighting for our freedom right now. There are people fighting for freedoms right now. There are people all over this planet fighting for freedoms right now. Freedom of medical choice, freedom of speech, freedom of slavery and persecution. But they are the few. They are the few. And we are not giving them the proper credit that they deserve. And the majority of us are choosing to sit back and allow others to fight for our freedoms. I truly believe that as a result of that, we are entering into a very, very dangerous time. We are entering into a very, very dangerous time because the amount of tyranny, control, and manipulation that is being enacted on humanity right now by a small group of people, we haven't experienced this in a very, very long time. And perhaps we've never experienced it the way that we're experiencing it right now. There is a group of people, make no mistake, that are highly invested in creating a slave planet. And they have done a very, very good job of creating slave countries. And most of those slave countries actually think that they're free, like the United States. But in the majority of our, I'll call them Western nations for lack of a better term, Australia, United States, much of Europe, people are living in states that they believe and recognize to be free. But the truth is that they're not. They are being completely controlled and manipulated and have been for generations by their governments, by their financial institutions and organizations. And the truth of the matter is that there is a group of elite people that control the finances, the money, the economics, the food, the medicine of the entire planet. Okay. And they are orchestrating this and have been orchestrating it for a very long time. And they know how to play a long game. This game, this Hunger Games reality that we're beginning to live in right now, it has been being orchestrated for generations. We are just seeing it come to fruition right now. These people have no problem playing the long game. But humanity, we live in the majority of the people on this planet, we live in these states of desiring instant gratification and only really being able to conceptualize short-term gains. And so we don't see it, right? And so when people started to warn us about this 2 years ago, the majority of the collective said, you're a conspiracy theorist. That could never happen. Think back to 3 years ago. Just think back to 3 years ago. If somebody had told us that we were going to be living in many of our countries across the planet, we're going to be living in police states, basically under martial law, being locked in our homes, having to wear a mask every time we left our houses, and being forced to have mandatory medical treatment against our will in many cases. And that not only were they going to force the adults to do that, but they were going to force the children to do that. You would have said 1,000,000%, unless you were one of the people that were awake at that time, conspiracy theorist. You have lost your freaking mind. There's no way that could ever happen. That we were going to lock down international travel for months and not allow people to fly to different countries on airplanes. We would have been like, you've lost the plot. That's never going to fucking happen. Well, guess what? It's all happened. And it has all happened because we have been programmed and conditioned to be blind to the control and manipulation of the global financial elite. Well, hopefully you're starting to wake up. Slavery didn't end in the United States with the abolition of slavery, right? All that was decided was, instead of making a few slaves, we're going to make everyone slaves. Let's put everyone underneath the slavery umbrella, because then they won't fight back. Because if everyone's there and everyone's in it together, it seems normal. So we've been raised to be compliant commodities that grow up believing that we need to leverage ourselves and get into debt and pay interest to financial institutions and organizations to support a global financial agenda that has absolutely zero interest in whether or not that's good for us. We are slaves. All of us. And some of us have it worse than others. Yes, there are atrocities happening on this planet when it comes to slave labor, indentured servitude, child trafficking, trafficking of men and women for sex. So there are varying degrees of slavery, but at some level, we're all existing in slavery. We are no longer free. We've paid a tremendous cost and we don't even recognize it and realize it. Now, there are some really incredible warriors out there on this planet right now that are fighting for our freedoms. And unfortunately, we're not supporting them. Many of us are too afraid to speak out. We're too afraid to show up. We're too afraid to tell our neighbor when we think that they're up in the night for doing something that we can't even possibly imagine would have been true just 3 years ago. We are being controlled and manipulated by fear. We are being hit where it hurts in our safety, stability, and security. We are in fear that we are not going to be able to financially provide for ourselves and our family. And the global elite are acting just like a good perpetrator or abuser does. They give us a little bit of freedom, they take it away. They give us a little bit of freedom, they take it away. So that every time they give us a little bit of freedom, we go, oh, maybe things are going to go back to the way that they used to be. Okay, I can hang in there. and then they snatch it away again. This is going to continue. This isn't going to change. And it's not going to change until the majority of humanity decides that they have had enough, until the majority of humanity is willing to pay a bigger cost than the cost that they're paying right now. But what's happening is this cost that we're paying right now, this cost of losing our freedoms, this cost of losing control over what we do with our physical vessels, this cost of, having to depend upon even more our governments and our financial institutions and organizations, they are normalizing it right now. We are in the stage of it being normalized. We are being desensitized to it, and it's happening. Believe me, it's happening. All you have to do is look at the children of my son's generation who are used to wearing masks now everywhere they go. It's normal. It's not weird. All you have to do is walk outside, go to your local supermarket or grocery store to see this reality, this crazy conspiracy theorist reality that we find ourselves living and existing in right now. It's being normalized because they're not finished, because they're not done. It's going to get worse. And I don't say this to you to be all doom and gloom. I say this to just say, this is the reality that we're living in. This is the reality that we're facing. It is going to get better before it gets worse because not enough people are willing to stand up right now and say no. They're not willing to stand up and say no because this is being normalized. They're not willing to stand up and say no because they're worried about what their neighbor will think. They're not willing to stand up and say no because they're worried about what their parents will think or their grandparents will think or their brother or their sister or their neighbor or the people that serve on the PTA board with them or the person that they sit next to in church. We're so worried and concerned what everybody else is going to think about us that we're not stopping to actually look and see what's happening, which is that day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, our freedoms are being stripped from us. And we are laying down and taking it, the majority of us. And so let's talk about the cost for a minute to these warriors that are actually out there standing up and speaking out. What's the cost to them? Well, they're being persecuted. They're being alienated. They're losing their family. They're losing their friends. They're losing their jobs. I was on the phone this morning with a client of mine who is a nurse, who is refusing to get the vaccine. And as a result, she's losing her job. So people in our helping professions, our medical professions, in the wake of a pandemic, a perceived pandemic, something we're calling a pandemic, when our medical professionals are saying, no, I do not want to have this vaccine, we're firing them from their jobs in the middle of a pandemic, where there's apparently a shortage of people that can help all the people who are sick and dying. We're firing them. Does this make sense? This is where we have to wake up. We have to open our eyes. We have to start being really, really honest with ourselves about what is happening in the world right now. We have to begin to sacrifice for freedom. Because if we don't begin sacrificing, the entire world is going to be living in not just financial internment, which I actually truly believe that we're all living in. We are all living in financial internment. But we're not going to just be living in financial internment. We are going to be living in internment camps, period. And if you don't believe it will happen to you, you're next. They just haven't gotten to you yet because you've been complying up until this point. There's going to come a point when it's going to be too much. And so really what I'm asking people to do right now is just, can you just give it to the kitchen and I'll get it before I go?
Give it to the kitchen?
Yeah, thank you. So really what I'm asking people to do right now is start to consider how late is going to be too late. How long is going to be too long? How long are you going to sit by and allow your freedoms to be taken away? How long is the discomfort or the comfort, which is actually discomfort, of where you're currently existing, going to be less comfortable than you standing up for what you know you believe in? Or standing up for your neighbor, or standing up for human rights, period. We are being controlled and manipulated using the thing that we cannot exist on this planet without, and that is money. So people with online platforms that are speaking out, they're hitting them there. They're censoring them. They're not allowing them to speak on their online platforms, which affects their ability to make money and sustain themselves and support their family, right? Anybody that is objecting to what's happening in the system is being hit financially harder than the rest of humanity, who is all being hit hard financially. They are manipulating us with money, and we are allowing it. And it is because we have been so programmed and conditioned to believe that there's no other way. We've been so programmed and conditioned to believe that we have to play inside this system that they've set up for us, that we have to do everything and anything and everything that our governments and our financial institutions and organizations tell us we have to do. We have to be good, compliant little commodities. We just can't see a way out. But the reality is that this world has split already. There has been a massive chasm, and there is a massive division taking place and happening on this planet right now between people who are existing and living in an old paradigm where financial control and manipulation is a reality, and a whole other group of people who are stepping into the creation of a new earth paradigm where manifestation and creation is the reality, where financial control and manipulation isn't and doesn't exist. And this may sound very woo-woo and out there to you, but the reality is that chasm has happened, that division is upon us, and I am not in that old paradigm anymore. I am not living or existing there, and I haven't been for several years. And now I'm beginning to see all the people that are stepping into this new paradigm. And let me tell you something. There are people who have already made this choice and already made this decision that would really, really surprise you, because it looks as if they're orchestrating things inside this old financial paradigm and system. But they know what's coming. They've prepared themselves. They've already shifted into this new timeline. They've already energetically and vibrationally moved out of this old, dense, very 3D, very fucked up, chaotic reality that the majority of humanity is living in right now. The truth is that you have a choice. You do not have to continue to exist over here. You get to come over into this new world, into this new earth, into this new paradigm, into this new reality where financial sovereignty and economic freedom is a reality. But you cannot get there if you do not deconstruct all of the programming and conditioning that is keeping you firmly entrenched in the old paradigm. Because you can't see. As long as you're entrenched in that old paradigm and you're complying and you're acting like a compliant commodity and you're too afraid to sacrifice for your freedoms, you can't shift. You can't shift because you can't see how. You cannot see outside the box, the prison that you've created for yourself, right? You've created it. You absolutely put yourself in it. And you did that because your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents also put themselves in prisons. And that's what they modeled for you. And that's what they showed you. And that's what they told you you had to do. But make no mistake about it. You've put yourself in the prison. You can also take yourself out. But it does require a commitment and a dedication and a devotion to deconstructing this programming and conditioning and beginning to be able to see in a different way than you've ever been able to see before. So I know I'm like super fired up. I'm being really serious. Normally I like have more jokes, but I'm just feeling so frustrated by what I'm seeing in the world right now. I'm being so frustrated by people's lack of belief in themselves and belief that we actually can make a difference. When you think about this, these people that are in control, the people that are controlling and manipulating us, it's so few. That number of people is so few, and we are so great. But we believe that we're small. We believe that we can't make a difference. We believe one voice can't make a difference. And so as a result of that, then we don't go talk to our neighbor. But it is in that talking to our neighbor. It is in finding our voice. It is in speaking out that we find other like-minded people. And then we join together, and then we join together with more of those people, and we join together with more of those people. And then that's how we actually make a difference. That's how we actually change. That's how we actually take back control of our financial destinies and our reality. So this weekend on Sunday, I am hosting a 3-hour wealth intensive. It's completely free. It is going to be it's going to be one of the last free events I do this year. I'm really being called to focus my energy and direction, towards helping people that are ready to actually create these financial shifts for themselves into freedom, helping them actually be able to do that by starting businesses that will be lucrative and profitable. So I'm definitely being pulled in that direction for the work that I'm going to be doing moving into 2022. But I am going to do this Ouroboros experience because my 4-month-long quantum wealth repatterning program is starting on September 2nd. And I really, truly believe that there has never been a more important time to do this work on this planet. And so I'm going to be hosting this 3-hour wealth intensive where we're going to be looking at the new earth wealth codes and really talking about what are codes, right? Like this is the spiritual buzzword that people use all the time. Codes are energetic vibration and frequency that we can bring ourselves into alignment with. And so I'm going to be talking about what these codes are. I'm going to be talking about how you can access and activate these codes. I'm going to be activating these codes. And I'm going to be giving you an experience of what it's going to be like to participate in this 4-month-long program with me, because I've had it. Like I've really had it. And I'm ready for people to free themselves from this financial tyranny that they're living in and deconstruct this fear programming, because that is actually how we are going to step up and step into sovereignty and free this entire planet from this group of people who only want to control and manipulate us and do not have our best interest at heart. It is serving them. It is serving their agenda. It is serving their desire for control and power. And it's just time. So I would love for you to join me on Sunday morning. It starts at 9 a.m. Bali time. There will be a replay available, though I really recommend that you come and be live with me. There's going to be some incredible gifts that I'm going to be giving away. And it's not going to be fluff. This is literally going to be a 3-hour activation. It's going to probably cause people to be very, very uncomfortable at parts because we're going to be looking at stuff that's not particularly easy to look at. So I would love for you to join me on Sunday. We will drop the link here in the comments. Hopefully Laura is still on and can drop the link to the opt-in for the event. You will be directed into a free Facebook group and also be receiving information for how to attend the Zoom if you do choose to participate live. So I would love to see you there. And also just one more announcement. Tonight we are having another Women on Wealth panel series. And tonight we're going to be talking about the polarity agenda, how gender role programming and conditioning around masculine and feminine, and how the masculine and how the feminine are meant to relate to money, how that's keeping you broke. So I'm really excited for the conversation tonight. So if you haven't already signed up for the Women on Wealth panel series, which is another free series that I'm doing, you definitely want to sign up because that's happening at 8 p.m. tonight in just about 7 hours from now. But I would really, really love for you, if you're feeling called to step into that warrior energy, if you're sick of living in the reality that you're living in right now, this is my call for you to join me in the Ouroboros experience on Sunday. at 10 a.m. Bali time, actually. It's 10 a.m. Bali time.
That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to connect with me on social media and reach out. I love hearing from you. And if you want more of me, real, raw, and uncensored, make sure to join the Wealth Witch Telegram channel. It's my free channel where I share all of my random daily musings, as well as the information that I feel like is important and pertinent to my community. We've put a link to the Telegram channel in the show notes, so make sure to come join us over there if that intrigues you. Remember, wealth is a mindset, and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off.